is the first from our series of webinars called What's the New Normal? This webinar series tries to make sense of the changes around us and the way of things we might expect to be at work and while communicating at work in a COVID-19 world. Before we get started, I'd like to take a few minutes of your time to talk about our organization, EnglishCoach Services. We're a learning and development company, and we specialize in business communication skills training for organizations. So we work with companies like Deutsche Bank of India, Larsen & Toubro, Pfizer, pharma companies such as Aurobindo, and startups like Urban Ladder, where we've customized and delivered business English and business communication programs for teams across levels. So typically, we might run interventions such as spoken and written business English, professional email writing skills, report writing skills, building executive presence, and one-on-one coaching for senior professionals. In this lockdown, we've taken the time to move fully online. So our classes or our programs are now available as live classes on our learning management system. And we can talk about that in more detail towards the end of this webinar. But what I'd like you to remember is that we are now fully accessible as a online training services company with live classes and self-paced learning modules that accompany these programs. Like I said, we'll talk about that in more detail. So thank you for joining us today. I know that a lot of us are in a bit of a webinar fatigue and have in the last month rather unwittingly become Zoomers. In that respect, I thank you for joining us this evening. We hope to make this webinar as meaningful as possible for you. And now, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the presenter for this webinar, Sharmila, who you can see on your screens. Sharmila is the founder of EnglishCoach Services, and she is an L&D professional or a learning and development professional who comes with 20 years of experience in this space. Sharmila has been certified in international training practice by City and Guilds UK. She has also completed a management program for women entrepreneurs from ISB, the Indian School of Business in Hyderabad. We'll talk a little bit more about EnglishCoach and our programs towards the end, but a few guidelines that I'd like you to keep in mind during this webinar. We will have a dedicated Q&A session about 40 minutes into Sharmila's presentation. I request you to use the Q&A feature in this webinar to ask your questions, and I will then relay your questions to Sharmila. And in the course of the webinar or during the webinar, if you would like to interact with Sharmila, there may be instances where she might ask you some questions, and to engage with her during the webinar, please use the chat feature. She will be reading the chat, and if she doesn't, then we will relay the chat to her. For any kind of technical troubleshooting as well, please chat with us and we will help you. So that's it from me, and I will hand it over to Sharmila now. So thank you so much for joining us, and all yours, Sharmila.
Thank you, Madhulika. A very good evening to all those who have logged in this evening for the webinar. Face-to-face meetings is not going to be for some time we are not going to have that experience. So the reason why, that was one of the reasons why we said we are going to have this topic chosen for the webinar. The first webinar of our series is going to be this topic. And I would also like to say, share a personal experience of mine. My husband lives and works in Ghana in Africa. And earlier we would connect on a call a couple of times and, have a video chat, and things were fine. But now, as he is working from home and he is in a lockdown, he spends more and more time on virtual meetings. And I think that has caused some amount of meeting frequency. So I thought maybe this is a good opportunity for us to explore this. How can we make our virtual meetings a lot more meaningful, productive, and professional? That is what we're thinking about. So let's move to the PPT. So this is the topic for today: mastering the art of virtual meetings. And meetings with professionalism and panache. Professionalism is a good thing and very difficult to observe when you're working from home. So let's see what we can do to work on that. And I use panache. I think today we've been so like in our meetings that it will be good if we can, look at some easing of ourselves and allowing our attendees also to become a lot more comfortable with the virtual meeting. So this is one statistics that I came across. Only 10% of meetings need to be conducted face to face, which means we are doing a lot of stuff which is, not virtual. A lot of meetings are happening on the real platforms like face to face. And I think we can now safely say that in the future, we're going to be more virtual and less
Good.
real time. Thank you, Madhulika, and thank you so much for joining in for this webinar. Any questions that you would like to ask?
So we can open it up to questions now. I think there were a couple of questions from Sumit while you were presenting, Sharmila. And
Okay.
so Sumit was talking about having, I think, one tool where he can manage all his meetings. So Sumit, I'm just going to read out the response from Swapnil. So Swapnil is our tech person that we go to, and he says that always use one calendar and you get different plugins to integrate different platforms depending on the single calendar you use. So for example, if you were to choose Google Calendar, then you can get plugins of each of those apps that you mentioned in your question. Then you can integrate each of those apps with the Google Calendar. So if the meetings are scheduled on any platform, you can link it with your Google Calendar and all your meetings can be in one place. So essentially use Google Calendar to manage your meetings. If you have several other platforms where you have meetings, and then integrate those plugins into your Google Calendar and you can manage it from one place. Some more questions. Right. So Iqbal asks, how to overcome different people talking at the same time? Good question.
Yes, I think this is something that happens very often. Uh, I think Zoom has the option of muting those when you're the organizer, you can mute participants, right? So I think, is that possible to mute people when they're talking? That is why, Iqbal, is also very important that you share the guidelines at the beginning of the meeting, saying that meeting call, you can speak, you can have your questions at the end, but then this question is different people talking at the same time. So there are 2-3 people talking at the same time, which means you need to have your chat as well. And you could do what we're doing, put your questions on chat. If you want to speak, can you show your hand? And I will allow, the organizer can call out names to the attendee whom he wants to listen to first. That's actually a difficult thing to manage as well. I would say it's a very difficult thing to manage when 2-3 people are talking at the same time. Let's have a show of hand. I think at the beginning of the meeting, you set the guideline. Please show your hand if you want to speak, and I will allow one by one, allow people to speak one by one. A little bit of control is required from the organizer then.
Right. Great. Thanks, Sharmila. Urmila asks, how can we make virtual meetings more interactive other than chat box? So other than using the chat feature, how can we make virtual meetings more interactive?
I think, Urmila, if you have a small number of people on your virtual meeting, if it's not like a webinar, there you can have people switch on their videos first and you can speak to them and you communicate. You do this small talk, you do a little bit of banter with each of them. And then ask them to switch off their camera if the bandwidth will not support it. But if you have good bandwidth, I think if you can have your cameras on, it will become interactive. You are automatically, your meeting becomes a lot more lively than just looking at a blank screen. So if you can have people come on camera and speak and try to make it more interactive, ask questions. Best way to make more interaction and engage with people is to ask questions.
Right. I think Sumit also had another question about non-verbal gestures. If you could shed some light on what are the kind of non-verbal gestures that one can make on a virtual meeting, and probably some input on the vocabulary, perhaps. What are some go-to phrases and vocabulary that you can use in virtual meetings? The question was asked a little earlier on, Sharmila.
Okay. Okay. So what are the non-verbal cues to catch attention? I would suggest Sumit not use Sumit, isn't it?
Sumit,
Sumit,
yes.
not to gesture too much in your meetings because it can be distracting when you're doing, things like that. Too much of movement can be distracting. So trying to be a little, professional and keeping your shoulders up and sitting and looking straight, avoiding gestures is good. Too much of nodding, you become a nodder then. You don't want to do all that. So these are some of the gestures that you don't want to do. I still think too much of gesturing on virtual meetings are not good, but what you can do is show of hand, which you use that particular tool to catch attention. I think that's the best. See, right now when I keep doing this also, it becomes too much of gesturing, or which is going out of control. So Madhulika, I was saying show of hand for Sumit, and he was asking for some vocabulary.
Right. He said some vocabulary input
For
virtual meetings.
Now I don't know if there's a different vocabulary that you need to use for virtual meetings. The same vocabulary would apply for virtual and face-to-face meetings. It is the same thing. I wouldn't say that there's another set of vocabulary that you have for virtual meetings. Would you agree with me, Madhulika, on this, or do you think there is something that you can specifically use for virtual meetings?
I think what he's trying to ask is, maybe a couple of things that you ought to be saying that you will definitely have to say in a virtual meeting. Sumit, I think it also depends on the role. If you are the organizer of the meeting, then it starts off with introducing everybody, so you may want to get that language and the vocabulary for introductions right. Then when you are moving the meeting along, you may want to have a set of vocabulary over there that you have got right. But remember, you might not be talking a lot. It's not a webinar. A virtual meeting might be a space where you are getting others to speak, so you can firm your language, or you can get your language in place for those bits where you are speaking beforehand, right?
I think what we can do with what Sumit's question is, Sumit, I can give you some vocabulary. I can share some vocabulary offline with you. I can email it with you for how to begin your meeting, how to transition from one point to another, some vocabulary for closing your meeting. Let me know if that will help, and I can do that.
All right. Some more questions. We'll take Alex's question first and then come to Narendra. So Alex says that it is always awkward at the start of a meeting. How do we break the ice?
I think what I was saying even in the webinar about having an introduction and allowing for some small talk to happen. I gave the example of how even in our virtual meetings with my own team, with Swapnil, the way we begin is usually to catch him and say, how's your girlfriend? What are you doing in the lockdown? Are you missing her? So how are you trying to, keep her engaged? What if she finds somebody else because she's not with you? So some kind of talk like this in front, before the meeting helps to break the ice. But you may not be getting too personal with everybody like the way we are, because we are all colleagues, we know each other. But breaking ice could be in any way. It could be just like, are you all comfortable, happy, and ready for this meeting can also be a good way to break ice. Just asking their names and telling them welcome, or just allowing for some small talk to happen is also a good way to break ice in a meeting.
Right. I just like to pitch in here. For example, now we're all in a common situation across locations and cities, and we're all in a lockdown. So one way to break the ice is to maybe joke about the lockdown itself. So are you done with your chores, or have you finished cleaning? Are the vessels in your sink piling up? So these could be some small ways to break the ice with people that you may not be familiar with. You may not be, who may not be your colleagues as well. Right. I'm just going to take Narendra's question over here and then come to what Jonathan is saying. Narendra says, how do we assess the success of a meeting? And not to use the word unprofessional, but how do we say that this meeting was successful?
I think that's a bit of a difficult thing to do. But I think let's say Narendra, if you are able to communicate the action points at the end of your meeting, and in your review meeting you find that all the action points are completed and what you had expected has taken place, then you can say your meeting has been successful. Because I don't think every meeting will be like 100% perfect, 100% successful. It cannot happen. But what you can do is, when you're putting down your action points and you are ticking them off in the next meeting, in your review meeting, you're saying, yes, point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 done, but 6 and 10 not achieved. You can say, all right, at least we have 80% success in this particular meeting. It all depends on how your action points have been fulfilled. If your action points have been fulfilled, which is the objective of your meeting, I think your meeting is pretty successful. So out of 10 action points, let's say 8 has been done, 9 have been done, then you can say that you're 90% successful.
Right. Great. Thanks, Sharmila. Jonathan says that, so one way, in answer to Alex's question, one way that he breaks the ice is when he is having meetings with his Indian counterparts, he gets them to introduce themselves with something funny. So a funny incident or a funny situation that they narrate, and he finds that it's a great icebreaker.
I think that's a good thing. I think that's really good. Jonathan, I think you have since you're working with one particular, with your own team, you can do this. This is really good. Like we do with our own meetings. We always try to share, start off with something funny, some story about what is happening, how my mother is coping with the lockdown, or how my mother-in-law is coping with the lockdown. Even those things can be a good icebreaker. I think this is a good thing from Jonathan, how he breaks ice with his team. Very nice.
All right. So Sumit asks, is sharing the recording a good idea? I'm assuming he means the meeting recording. So perhaps attendees, would it be a good idea to share the meeting recording? Yeah, Sharmila, what do you think? Is it
I
all
think
right?
it's okay. It's okay. I think we can share it. That's not a problem. If it's useful for somebody, I think we should share information. We just spoke about that in this webinar.
Will we get the PPT of this program? Okay. Yes, we can give you some reading material for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So we can close here if there aren't any more questions with a few announcements. Thanks, Iqbal. Thank you so much. My apologies for maybe some of the audio glitches that were there at the start of the webinar. We're trying to resolve those issues at our end and come back with better technically sound webinars, but you know that this is the Murphy's law that applies. If something has to go bad, it will go bad. And just a few announcements. Number one, at the end of this webinar, there is a survey. So please fill out that survey form. It's also a way for us to keep in touch with you and inform you about our free webinars that will be coming up later this month. We also have a few workshops that are planned, which we will be informing you about. Additionally, if you remember, I told you that now EnglishCoach offers all its programs through live classes. So we have a learning management system, which is a self-sufficient system where you come for live classes and you also practice some learning in your own time. And we are running programs for corporates, for individuals who are professionals, as well as high schoolers and young adults. So we can send you more information about this through our emails, but please keep in touch with us and remember to fill out the survey form. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much, Neha.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody. And thanks to my team for all the support the past few days, helping me out with this. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good weekend. Enjoy your Sunday, and we'll catch up on Monday. Bye-bye.
Can you leave your ID here, Iqbal, and then I'll be able to get in touch with you? So while we were talking about the programs that we have one-on-one coaching as well for professionals, and we have run such programs for organizations such as Larsen and Toubro, for PrimeSoft Solutions. I think we have Akshay from PrimeSoft over here. We've also done one-on-one coaching for some VC companies like Matrix Partners. And when I say one-on-one, these are for senior professionals. So if you would like us to, if you're interested in one of these programs, please feel free to write to us. Right. All right. So Iqbal, I think we might have your email ID, or if you can leave it here, good. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good evening. Thanks, Urmila. Thank you for joining.
Bye-bye.